X-Men is an American superhero film series based on the Marvel Comics superhero team of the same name. 20th Century Fox obtained the film rights to the team and other related characters in 1994 for $2,600,000. After numerous drafts, Bryan Singer was hired to direct the first film, released in 2000, and its sequel, X2, while the third installment of the original trilogy, X-Men: The Last Stand, was directed by Brett Ratner. After each film outgrossed its predecessor, several spin-off films were released, including 3 Wolverine films, 4 X-Men prequel films, 2 Deadpool films, and 2 television series Legion and the Gifted, with the standalone The New Mutants concluding the series in 2020 after a 20-year-long run. With 13 films released, the X-Men film series is the 9th highest-grossing film series, having grossed over $6 billion worldwide. In March 2019, Marvel Studios regained the film rights to the X-Men, along with the Fantastic Four and Deadpool, after Disney acquired Fox for $71.3 billion. They are planned to be integrated into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In October 2020, the films in the X-Men series, along with the Fantastic Four films, were rebranded as Marvel Legacy Films on Disney+. Plot: in 1979, aspiring pornographic actress Maxine Minks embarks on a road trip through Texas with her producer boyfriend Wayne, fellow actors Bobby Lynn and Jackson Hole, director RJ, and RJ's girlfriend, Lorraine, to shoot an adult film for the booming theatrical pornography market. Bobby Lynn and Jackson strike up a romance, while Lorraine is unimpressed with the film's content, and RJ attempts to make it seem like a serious cinematic piece. The group arrives at the farm of Howard and Pearl, an elderly couple in whose guest house the group intends to shoot the film The Farmer's Daughters. Howard is temperamental towards the group, brandishing a shotgun while Pearl silently stalks Maxine. As filming commences without Howard's knowledge, Maxine is invited inside the couple's home by Pearl, where they have a conversation. Pearl laments her age, expresses jealousy for Maxine's youth, and makes a sexual advance towards her. She later watches Maxine have sex with Jackson and is aroused. Pearl pleads with Howard to have sex with her, but he refuses, claiming his heart is too weak. Night falls, and the film crew relaxes in the guest house. Lorraine, keen to shed her reputation as a prude and intrigued by the film, asks to participate in the shoot. RJ is immediately opposed to the idea and accuses the group of putting her up to it, though they assure him that they did not and that Lorraine's choice to be in the movie falls on her alone, regardless of his feelings. RJ then films the scene of Lorraine and Jackson having sex. Frustrated with the change in the script and in shock by Lorraine's unfaithfulness, RJ sets out to leave the crew stranded at the farm while they are asleep, but he is stopped by Pearl, who attempts to seduce him. When he rebuffs her, she stabs him to death. Lorraine and Wayne notice RJ is missing and go searching. Wayne is killed with a pitchfork in the barn by Pearl. Lorraine is invited into the couple's house by Howard, who claims Pearl is missing and asks Lorraine to retrieve a flashlight from the basement. When Lorraine attempts to leave the basement, she discovers she has been locked in. After turning on the light, she discovers the rigged corpse of a male sex slave. Howard approaches the guest house and asks Jackson to help him locate Pearl. Jackson finds a submerged car in a pond before Howard shoots him dead, revealing himself to be complicit in Pearl's violent tendencies. Meanwhile, Pearl enters the guest house and climbs into Maxine's bed naked. Maxine awakens and screams, causing Pearl to flee the house, which Bobby Lynn witnesses. In the farmhouse, Lorraine uses a hatchet to break through a panel in the basement door, but Howard attacks her, breaking her finger, and forces her back inside. Bobby Lynn follows Pearl outside to the nearby lake and tries to guide her away from the water. Pearl angrily accuses Bobby Lynn of being a whore before pushing her into the lake where she is devoured by an alligator. Maxine sees Pearl and Howard return to the guest house and hides under the bed. The elderly couple discusses the murders before having sex. Maxine manages to flee to the van, where she finds RJ's corpse and the keys missing. Armed with a pistol from the glove box, Maxine enters the farmhouse and frees Lorraine, who angrily blames Maxine for what has happened. Lorraine panics and runs out the front door, only to be shot by Howard. As Howard and Pearl begin moving the bodies, intent on framing the crew as intruders, a dying Lorraine startles Howard, who has a heart attack and dies. Maxine retrieves the keys to Howard and Pearl's truck and attempts to shoot Pearl, but the pistol is not loaded. Pearl tries to shoot Maxine, who dodges, while the recoil from the shotgun causes Pearl to fall and break her hip. As Pearl lies injured outside the house, she begs Maxine for help. Maxine refuses, and as Pearl berates her, Maxine runs her over with the truck, crushing Pearl's head. Maxine drives away from the farm. The next morning, the police arrive at the house to retrieve the bodies. It is revealed that Maxine is the daughter of a fundamentalist Christian preacher, whose speeches frequently played on Howard and Pearl's television. The police discover RJ's camera and speculate about what it contains. Cast: Mia Goth as Maxine Max Minx and Pearl. Jenna Ortega as Lorraine Day. Brittany Snow as Bobby Lynn Parker. Scott Mescudi as Jackson Hole. Martin Henderson as Wayne Gilroy. Owen Campbell as RJ Nichols. Stephen Ure as Howard. Additionally, James Galen appears as Sheriff Dentler. Themes and influences. Nate Roscoe of Fangoria wrote in an essay on the film that X exemplifies a modern take on the psycho-biddy horror subgenre, in which aging or elderly women portray grotesque, violent characters. Roscoe also notes that the film's primary theme revolves around aging, youth, and longing over the past. Snatching its inspo from the shadiest recesses of art and exploitation, it is the relationship between beauty, aging and self-worth that creeps most conspicuously through the architecture of X. He also notes that the film presents its antagonist, the murderous Pearl, in a manner that is sympathetic, writing that, at moments, one can't help but feel crushingly sorry for this tragic figure. Critics noted the influence of several films on X, with multiple commentators observing homages to the 1974 film The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Other films cited by critics as having an influence on X include Psycho, Hardcore, The Shining, Alligator, and Boogie Nights. Richard Roper wrote that X also contains echoes of such pornographic films as Blue Movie and Debbie Does Dallas. Production. In November 2020, it was announced that A24 would produce a horror film titled X, which would be written and directed by T.I. West and starring Mia Goth, Scott Mescudi, and Jenna Ortega. In February 2021, Brittany Snow joined the cast. Principal photography took place from February 16 to March 16, 2021, in New Zealand's North Island. A number of scenes were shot in and around the city of Whanganui. Production was predominantly based at a farm in the settlement of Fordell, where a large barn was constructed as part of the production. Photography also took place near the Ranjit Ki town of Bulls, where producers made use of an old town hall. Special effects. Goth donned extensive prosthetic makeup to portray the elderly Pearl. Describing her experience, Goth stated, "It was a good 10 hours in the makeup chair, and then I'd go and do a 12-hour day on set, and the makeup artist, Sarah Rubano, who was incredible, would constantly be touching me up and making sure my contacts were all right and all those sorts of things." The scene in which Pearl stabs RJ in the neck involved the use of a retractable prop knife, a prosthetic neck with a slit in it, and tubing to allow the passage of stage blood through the slit. The effect of RJ's subsequent decapitation was accomplished using a dummy head of RJ, with the stunt performer in a false floor. The stunt performer lay on his back, with his head and shoulders beneath the false floor and concealed by a prosthetic upper body. The performer then twitched his body during the filming of the scene, which, when paired with the disembodied dummy head, creates the illusion of RJ's body continuing to twitch after death. For the scene in which Pearl stabs Wayne in the eyes with a pitchfork, a dummy of Wayne's upper body and head was constructed by the Netherlands-based Mimic FX studio. Music. The film's score was composed by Tyler Bates and Chelsea Wolfe, and features a cover version of We, Marie performed by Wolfe, which was released as a digital single on March 11, 2022. Aside from the score by Bates and Wolfe, the film incorporates a number of songs from the 1960s and 1970s, including In the Summertime by Mungo Jerry, Act Naturally by Loretta Lynn, and The Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult. Additionally, one scene in the film features Jackson and Bobby Lynn performing Landslide by Fleetwood Mac, with the former playing acoustic guitar and the latter providing vocals. Release. X premiered at the 2022 South by Southwest Festival on March 13, 2022. The film was released in the United States on March 18, 2022. Home media. The film was released on video-on-demand services on April 14, 2022. It was released on Blu-ray and DVD on May 24, 2022, by Lionsgate Home Entertainment. Reception. Box office. X has grossed $11.8 million in the United States and Canada, and $2.7 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of $14.5 million, making it a box office success against its mere $1 million budget. In the United States and Canada, X was released alongside Jujutsu Kaisen 0, The Outfit, and Uma, and was projected to gross $25 million in its opening weekend. The film earned $4.3 million from 2,865 theaters in its opening weekend, finishing fourth. Men made up 55% of the audience during its opening, with those in the age range of 18-34 comprising 73% of ticket sales. The ethnic breakdown of the audience showed that 50% were Caucasian, 22% Hispanic and Latino Americans, 12% African American, and 16% Asian or other. The film made $2.2 million in its second weekend and $1 million in its third. It dropped out of the box office top 10 in its fourth weekend with $359,067. Critical response. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 94% based on 213 reviews, with an average rating of 7.7/10. The website's critics' consensus reads, "A fresh spin on the classic slasher formula, X marks the spot where T.I. West gets resoundingly back to his horror roots." On Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, the film has a score of 79 out of 100 based on 35 critics, indicating generally favorable reviews. Audiences polled by PostTrack gave the film a 68% positive score, with 45% saying they would definitely recommend it. Reviewing the film following its SXSW premiere, Owen Gleiberman of Variety called it a deliberate, loving, and meticulous homage to 1974's The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, as well as a wily and entertaining slow-motion ride of terror that earns its shocks, along with its singular quiz factor, which relates to the fact that the demons here are ancient specimens of humanity who actually have a touch of humanity. John DeFore of The Hollywood Reporter commended the film's cast and noted that, before the gore begins, West seems to truly consider the pain of irretrievable youth, and feel for those whose final years are consumed by it. The AV Club's Todd Gilchrist gave the film a grade of B+, writing that it examines the way that youth in others seems to bring out the feeling and impact of age in ourselves, not to mention how we resist or respond to that when it happens, and calling it bloody, balls of fun. Abby Olcese, writing for RogerEbert.com, gave the film a score of 3 out of 4 stars, concluding, X is plenty of fun, it also feels like a trifle that could easily have been much more. Upon release, The Atlantic's David Sims called the film a modern classic, comparing it with 2022's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which he felt failed creatively compared to X. Richard Roeper of the Chicago Sun-Times awarded the film 3.5 out of 4 stars, calling it the kind of movie that has you reeling in disgust at certain moments, then laughing at the blood-spattered absurdity of it all. It's a new twist on the period piece slasher movie, smart and strange and fantastically depraved. A.O. Scott, in a review of the film for the New York Times, wrote that X isn't shy about appealing to voyeurism. There's nothing coy or arty about the bloodletting. West, unlike his pornographers, has things to say as well as bodies to show. Most of all, he has an aesthetic that isn't all about terror or titillation. X is full of dreamy, haunting overhead shots and moments of surprising tenderness. Valerie Complex of Deadline Hollywood referred to the film as a new love letter to the slasher film genre, writing, I give West credit for having a vision and sticking to his influences. He knows what he wants to do and how to execute it unapologetically. X is surface-level entertainment but still a satisfying piece of indie horror filmmaking that's worth taking a chance on. Dmitry Samarov of the Chicago Reader gave the film a mostly negative review, writing that even the most casual horror fan won't miss the references that X makes to 1974's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but that, unlike Tobe Hooper's masterpiece, which has a point to make about economic desperation and cultural clash in 70s America, West just wants to punish everyone involved in gory ways played for laughs.